Okay, I should be working. I had this big project I was working on, and the lady went out of town. She came back. My roll got shrunk and pushed back. Well, I'm nervous about that. I'll be okay, though. I'm actually going to do a little project today. I'm doing a dog obedience training box. It's just this piece of plywood with 3 sides to it that the dog sits in. I don't know. Easy peasy. But this video isn't about that. It's about the engine mounts again with the all-wheel drive Astro Van, because it's a correction video. I misspeak in every video. Every video I do here, I will use an incorrect term, or say something a little wrong. The overall thrust of the video is correct, I think. And you guys give me a lot of leeway, so I appreciate it, because nobody's really correcting me, because you know what I'm talking about. I said something the other day about the Chevy Silverado being 4-wheel ready out of the factory. No, it's 4-wheel drive already. It's off-road capable. So I just, I'm just off the cuff these things. I'm not getting dressed up for the video, clearly, and I'm not thinking about too much what I'm going to say. I just know what I want to talk about, and it comes out. So bear with me, people, please. Anyhow, these are the engine mounts, right? Now, I just want to explain something here. Because I use the term sagging, that your engine's sagging with the all-wheel drive Astro Vans. And it obviously happens to the 2-wheel drive too. It's a little bit of a different story with those. But what's really happening here is, now these are the mounts that I put in the van when I first bought it. I bought the van, the axle was rubbing up, the oil pan was settling down on the axle, was rubbing a little bit. I bought 3 different versions of these mounts. And I picked what looked like the most heavy-duty ones I could find at that time, which were these. And that was really based on the steel cage. This was the thickest cage I could find. 2 days after I put them in, the motor sagged back down on that side. And it took a while to solve the problem. And I eventually went with the Prothane mounts. If you watched the other 2 videos, I hope you have. You know what I went through, and that's what you should probably be doing. But I found these in my shop while I was cleaning up yesterday, and I'm going to these cages are still good. I'm going to send them to a buddy of mine who finally got himself an all-wheel drive Astro Van in New Jersey for $2,500. It looks pretty clean. I haven't gotten a picture yet of the chassis to see if his engine's sagging. Hopefully he's okay. But if he needs to do his mounts, I'm going to send these cages to him, and he can do the Prothane thing and everything else. But I just wanted to explain what's actually happening, because it's not a sag so much as it's a torque of the motor issue. And it's something I noticed even, drastically, actually, when I was at Journey's Off-Road in Prescott. They had a chassis there. It was funny, I talked to that guy on the phone at one point, and he said, oh, that guy on the phone with the engine mounts doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. I'm like, I am that guy. And then right in his yard was a chassis, all-wheel drive chassis, that had the mounts in it, and you could see the same thing. The rubber shifts. So if you were underneath the van, and you were looking towards the front of the van at the engine mounts, this is your passenger side, this is your driver's side, and if you look, you'll see that this mount on the passenger side, the bushing inside the cage is slid down, and there's a bigger gap here, right, in there. This is the driver's side, and you'll notice that this bushing is actually pushed up, and there's a bigger gap at the bottom. A little bit of a gap still at the top, but more of a gap at the bottom. And this bushing is not as compressed as this one is. Another thing you'll notice, if you can see it here, both of these bushings are slid back inside the cage. When I put these bushings in the van, and I didn't do it myself, I hired a shop. I'm not going to do this job on my back in a driveway. When they were installed in the van, these bushings were not slid back. So within 2 days of these being in the van, that drive shaft, everything else, the motor, torqued that bushing inside the cage and pulled it back. That's why when you install your Prothane kit, you got to make sure you slide them back and put them in correct. Now, that's the issue. Okay, if you've got a 2-wheel drive Astro Van and you buy yourself a new set of mounts, you should shim the gap on either side of the bushing. And the other thing I did with mine was I made this riser plate. And the reason I did it, and I did mention this in the other videos, I'm just showing it to you because I found it in this box. And you can make this yourself. Just lay these down on the ground, trace this out, connect the lines, so you shave off some material. I did 1/8 inch thick steel for my plate. If I was going to do it again, I would go with at least 3/16, possibly 1/4 inch. Because when you measure the distance from where this mounts inside the truck to here. On the Prothane, it's a little bit shorter than factory. So you're going to want to lift that up a little bit. You don't have to. If you do, you get a little extra space. So anyhow, that's the story. That's all I really wanted to talk about. It's really the torque of the motor that's pulling the rubber bushings inside these cages. That's what the issue is. So, I don't know. If you're a manufacturer that makes these aftermarket engine mounts for the Astro Van, maybe that's something you want to take into consideration. Because if you look at some of these other ones, and, these were ones I bought that didn't use. A Napa part here. You can see here, actually this one here is actually to one side already, and that's not good, and that's a really crappy piece of rubber there and a real thin cage. I would not put this in my van. But if you've got a two-wheel drive, you don't have to worry about shifting the bushing back towards the back of the vehicle. At the very least, shim either side of this bushing so your motor doesn't pull them down. It's not the same issue with the two-wheel drive. I think if you're replacing your engine mount on a two-wheel drive Astro Van, it's a whole different issue probably. It's a ride thing. Probably the bushing's shot and you're feeling something with the way the motor is rubbing or making a noise or something like that. I don't think there's anything that the motor's hitting if those are shot. All-wheel drive, oil pan rubs the axle. So I hope this is somewhat more clear. It's the torque of the motor that's pulling the rubber bushings, pulling them out of place inside the cage itself. Go with the Prothane, polyurethane. I'm hoping this will focus for you. Sometimes it overexposes, and I'm just doing this because I can't see what you see. Maybe you can screenshot it. You can just go online, Astro Van engine mounts, Prothane polyurethane kit, and find it. And that's it. My gal is back from her trip. I mentioned this in, I think, the last video. She's in Texas. And Anita, if you're watching this, we're all waiting. We're all waiting for this logo to get done. Have a good day. Be good to each other. Astro Van Tribe. Hashtag Astro Van Tribe. Bye.